want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Madmen of Masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, I am Kirk M. Samuel.
And I am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the Madmen of Masculinity.
That's right, we're just real men having real conversations for you.
For you.
We don't do this for us, we do this for you.
For you. 1, 2, 3, for you.
For
I got accused of being unprofessional.
Yeah.
So
I got accused of being judgy. So
well,
you know, we're having office meetings. And
the difference is you are judgy.
But you're not. What?
Well, I am kind of.
Wait, hang on a second.
We gotta get over.
All right, fine.
We gotta get over.
That's all right,
That's
though.
how we do it.
But see, that's the whole thing. Is like you got to be yourself, because being yourself is the easiest way.
Yeah. We keeps it real
We
around
keeps
this
it real.
piece, man. We keeps it real.
That's why we get along, because we're like, you unprofessional, I'm judgy, whatever. Let's move on.
It is what it is. It is. We too old to change. You
It's just the
gotta
way it
accept
is.
You just got to accept it. Man, today, JBK, man, I was at this this charity golf event where I was honored to be able to serve as MC for the luncheon and all that kind of stuff too. Then I realized I didn't have my laptop. So then I was like, man, I got to get out of here. Matter of fact, I told them we got to hurry up and do the raffle, blah, 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 because I got to get out of here. I got to go because I had to go home and get my laptop. And then when I went home, I got the laptop. I had something to do while I was at the laptop. And then I got home, I got my laptop. Then I had to get on the highway. Then I had to leave here. Then I got to drop somebody off. And then my son's in town for the week. You ever feel like you got too much stuff going on in life?
Every day.
For real?
Yeah, it just feels like of course, maybe the days are just getting shorter. Maybe time's going faster. Maybe it's just me getting older. But it just feels like my to-do list, it never shrinks. And every time I check one off, it's like 3 more things pop up. And then it's like, well, let me see what I can squeeze into this. What can I squeeze into this? And then sometimes I'm like, why am I doing all this?
See, I thought it was just me. I thought sometimes, man, dude, am I the only one that's just on this treadmill of life, man? Am I the only one that's in this rat race? Am I the only one that's in do mode and life becomes doo-doo?
Right.
Am I the only one, or is it everybody else? I don't know, man. Maybe it's just cultural.
I think it is cultural. I think it's a Western thing. It's all about keeping up with the Joneses, and nothing's ever good enough, and nobody's ever satisfied, and it's just bigger, better, more.
And then do we as men get run down? Do you think we as men just kind of get burnt out and burnt down and all that kind of stuff just with the run, the go, and the do?
I think we do. How could we not? Because there's never a finish line. Man, it's always a moving goal line.
Wouldn't it be nice if we had somebody that had a perspective on this topic?
It would be nice.
Wouldn't
it be nice?
Do you think?
I think it would be a good time to bring in Mr. Dan Gomer, our special guest for today.
Nice.
See, we want to bring Dan in because we talk about high value men and sexual marketplace values, so like that, and the sixes, 6 feet tall, 6 figures, all the other sixes. We're not gonna get into those because it's FCC. I'm gonna stop right there. But Dan is one of those guys. How tall are you?
6'5".
6'5". Okay, I don't like you anymore either.
Yeah.
And then I know,
but I can't dunk anymore. So
well,
I don't know if that makes
can't dunk anymore.
Just get anymore. He says.
Could you ever dunk?
Of course, yeah.
See, I can never dunk
Not
unless it was
anymore.
like on the kiddie one down low.
I could dunk an Oreo in a glass.
There it is.
I've done that before.
That's we got their chubby cheeks. But and then you're a successful businessman. You're in real estate. Are you part of EXP?
I am
Barry?
part of EXP.
So Barry. Barry's one of our special guest assistants.
Yeah,
He comes in.
Barry's my partner.
in his eyes.
Yeah.
Dude, we need to send him a picture of this.
Oh yeah, we will. We will
Holla at your boys.
bring him in here and mess up the show.
Yeah. Me, Barry, and Monica running the SAC, the Super
That is
Agents
amazing.
Collaborative.
So
Small world, dude.
So
Yeah.
you're over 6 feet. I know you're making more than 6 figures. You're like what, 3%er?
He's got to be, man.
Got to be a 3%.
He's got to be.
Yeah.
Got to be. Let's keep it real.
But we had a conversation recently, and it's one of these conversations that I think all of us have occasionally, and why we started the way we did is that why are we working so hard? Now, tell us about your experience. I think this is amazing because a lot of people go, "Oh, I'm just going away for a weekend," and then for you it was like mind blowing, I guess. But tell us about your experience.
Yeah. So first of all, I couldn't help. I was listening to the intro, and Kirk's talking about getting stuff off the do list, which I might steal that, Kirk. That's okay. The best way to get stuff off your to-do list is just stop putting stuff on there.
Yes.
Right. And it sounds so simple, but it's not always that simple. And so the reason that we ended up You want me to talk about my trip a little
Yeah,
bit?
talk about the trip. Because I mean, the whole point of this was like, you were like, I think simplicity might be bliss, but is it?
Yeah.
And we're like, well, let's talk about that. Well, what was that experience? 'Cause I know in the back of my mind, a lot of times, like I had a friend come into town, one of my oldest friends, and she lives in Bangkok now. And she's like, I have a 2-bedroom apartment. You can come visit anytime. I'm like, oh, girl, don't tempt me.
Mm-hmm.
Go hang out in Thailand where everything's cheap and there's beaches everywhere. I'm like, come on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it started for me back. Well, I won't go through the whole story. We'll start in 2020. I had my best year ever in real estate. Really successful. It was me and one assistant that I had at the time. And by the end of the year, I was just utterly exhausted. I was just so beat down. And I remember, looking back at my family and just recognizing that even though I was there with them for some of that time, I was never really with them when I was with them. All I did was work. And I kind of had to get to that place because I really wanted, I felt a need to prove myself to myself and to the world. Like, hey, look what I can do. Look, I can be successful. I can create something. And then I did. And I said, you know what? I don't think I want to do this anymore. And so I actually started looking for an exit strategy in real estate, ended up moving over to EXP, started this team with Barry and Monica, kind of got rejuvenated, brought back my teaching spirit. I'm a former middle school science teacher, so I'm building the team and getting to teach and all that kind of stuff. But once again, that same pattern started to creep back in. Okay, well, I've got a little bit of time. Let's cram this in there. I got a little bit more time. Let's cram this in there. It's kind of, next thing I know, I'm just completely overwhelmed again with everything that I had going on. And so one day I turned to my wife, just kind of to her out of the blue. And I said, I've been thinking about this. We could sell all of our assets here in the US and we could move to Costa Rica and retire and be done today, right now. She was like,
how'd she take that?
She had a great response. She was like, that sounds like a really great idea. Why don't we go visit first?
Good idea.
And then, go from there. And I said, okay, fine. So we set the wheels in motion to go to Costa Rica. But I said, if we're going to go to Costa Rica, I want to live there. So we set it up for about 5.5 weeks in Costa Rica. We spent the first 10 days bouncing around, doing the touristy thing, Tamarindo, Arenal, the volcano, Manuel Antonio, doing the touristy stuff. But then we ended up landing in a small town where a friend of mine actually bought a hotel. You talked about your friend who bought a place in Bangkok. He bought like a motel in a super, super small town, a poor community, a fishing community on the Pacific coast in Costa Rica near Jaco. And so we ended up spending 4 weeks there. And just to kind of give you like a concept of what this place was like, when we first rolled up, we're driving through this town, and we're coming, by the way, from Manuel Antonio, one of the nicest places we stayed at the entire time, like 5-star hotel and all that kind of stuff. And then we roll into this town, and it is obviously very, very, very not wealthy. Mm-hmm. And, like just kind of steel siding for the sides of their houses. Right. You can see through the backs of some of their houses. I mean, it's literally a roof over your head for most of them. A lot of them cook over open fires, no indoor plumbing. And so we're driving through this community going, oh man, what have we gotten ourselves into? I got my wife and my kids here with me. What are we doing? And we pull in, and, our friends who were supposed to be there with us had a family emergency. So they left the day before we arrived and said, hey, we're not going to be back. So we were on our own, barely speak Spanish. The local people speak no English, none. And so the groundskeepers come over to let us in our room. We're trying to communicate with them. They take us up to our room. I push on the door, and it doesn't even latch. It just pushes open. The deadbolt doesn't lock. The regular thing, the door doesn't even stay closed.
Well, it's like white people survivor.
Right. Right. So I'm like, okay, well, we'll figure this out. We take the kids over to their room, drop off all their stuff. The groundskeeper leaves. We go back into our room, and I go into the bathroom, and I open up the lid, and there's a toad, like a huge toad, in the toilet.
He's like, hey, man, what are you doing? Close the door.
Close that thing, man. What are
you doing in here?
Don't even think about using this.
That's right. So I'm like, oh my gosh, so I go outside, spend 10 minutes trying to tell the groundskeeper there's a frog in the toilet. I don't know what to do. She finally figures it out, comes back in, opens up the toilet. It's gone. whatever, just flushes the toilet and walks out, like there for 20 minutes and this is our experience, and so we're just, it was shocking at first,
So how was that conversation with the little lady?
Yeah.
It's been an interesting conversation because
especially then, like there's a toad in the toilet, you just got where you're going, like how was she reacting?
Well, I mean, if you've ever been backpacking, or climbed a tough mountain, or just been in a position, gotten on a black run on your skis when you're not ready for it, there's only one way.
You just gotta go
down. You gotta go, and that's kind of where we were. So there really wasn't an opportunity to. This is what was so magical about it. You're there.
Yeah.
Deal with it. Yeah. Even my daughter, who loves to like turn her nose up to food and complain about different things and all that. Man, you talk about an amazing opportunity to bring some cohesiveness to a family. Man, drop yourself into a community where it's like we had hot water in one room. There's 18 rooms in this place. Only one of them had hot water. The kitchen did not have hot water. I mean, it was rustic,
right,
to say the least. And the conversation was, hey, we're on an adventure. We're on an adventure, so get used to it.
Embrace the suck, kids. We're on an adventure.
Yeah, that's right. That's kind of what it was. And so, you kind of cross a point where it's just like, hey, we're in this together. And so there really wasn't a whole lot of complaining. There was like an acknowledgement, but there really wasn't a whole lot of complaining from anybody, which was great. There was even one night where we don't know what happened. And luckily my kids weren't in the room, but the ceiling is made of, think of like luxury vinyl plank that you use on the floor, but that's the ceiling. Somehow, like an iguana or something got up in between the rafters or something and like ran across the ceiling, and the entire ceiling through the whole room just fell down on the bed. We like go to put the kids to bed. We open the door and it's like clunk.
Oh, wow.
And I like look in and there's just, just ceiling all through the whole.
And I'm sure as a real estate professional, you're like, building codes. Who got the inspection?
There's no building code.
So you were basically forced into simplicity, into the basics.
Yes.
Forced into that by by the circumstance, by the situation. Right. That's one of the things that you pretty much, to your point, you find yourself in it. And then it's like, okay, now that we're in it, it just is what it is, man. It's we ride together, we die together kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, because you weren't actually like at survival level. You weren't at subsistence level because, I mean, you had a roof, you had food, things like that. It was just wasn't at the level that you're used to.
Right. And, and to kind of put it in perspective as well, before we left, there was, I had a 5-day business trip, like EXP, like event in Orlando. I do that whole thing, and that's high energy and it was great. But then I come home, I got 3 days to get everything done before we go to Costa Rica. So by the time I hopped on that plane to go to Costa Rica, I was done.
You slept the whole flight.
Dude, speaking of done,
are we done?
Let's done this.
All right, we're done. I'm out of here.
Let's done ourselves into a
punch
break,
me out.
Man.
Thanks, guys.
We'll be right back. Mad Men and Masculinity, KLDC 1220 AM in the Mile High City. Be right back. Boom.
Boom.
Good stuff. Good stuff, man.
Yeah. All right, now we're gonna start digging into that. Like, what does this mean? What does that mean?
Yeah.
What did you get out of it? Because yeah, I think a lot of us have that thought. We're like, well, what if I just sold everything and just disappeared? Like, what would that be like? And you kind of had that experience. So
I mean, that's what I wanted to create, and it was magical.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. We'll bring some magic on out.
Yeah. Here we go. Funny, you guys know Barry.
And we're back.
Yep.
We are the Mad Men of Masculinity. This is KLDC, and we're talking about simplicity's bliss, y'all.
Yeah, no doubt. You were talking about this Costa Rica experience, and right before the break, you were talking about just how it got down to the basics and the bare bones, and then so given that experience, I mean, what were your takeaways? What were your takeaways in terms of once you were in it, and all of a sudden you and your family find yourself in these what are uncomfortable conditions, I guess you call it, for us as less than 1 star accommodations.
Like, I mean,
so what were the takeaways from that experience?
All right, loaded question. I'll try to keep it succinct here, but I think one of the things that stood out to me most was one of the groundskeeper's family. The guy's name is Doggo. He's got 2 daughters and then a grandson. And one of the things that really stood out to me about them, and I would even say all the people that lived in Tarcoles was the name of this town, Playa Azul was the beach. They're some of the nicest, most just give you the shirt off their back and anything they can to help. They are some of the nicest salt of the earth people I've ever met. And they have nothing, so to speak, right, to their name.
Yeah. And
so one of the things that I learned from watching them was, okay, so every morning we'd wake up with the sun. There's macaws in the tree making all this noise, and they would wake us up every morning at like 6 o'clock. It was great. Go outside, sit there. It is just still, it's quiet. There's like a horse that like runs up and down the street. Like, I'm not kidding. There's a cow that came and drank out of our pool one day. Like, it's kind of wild, right? And it's just super quiet. And every day Doggo comes over first thing in the morning. He's got a little chore to do. Sometimes he rakes the leaves. Sometimes he cleans out the pool. Then he goes home and he sits with his family. They might cook a little bit of lunch. They come out, do a little bit more work. He's also the local mechanic, so he'll work on cars here and there. And then at night, everyone just chills and hangs out with the family. They cook dinner together. There's no TV. They just chill. They hang out. They talk to each other. You can hear people all over the town talking to each other, and having little parties and stuff like that. And they go to bed at like 9:30.
Yeah, you talk about quality time. I mean,
Yeah.
I had an experience similar to that. One of my first trips to Mexico, I'm in this big group where you got this big, like 50 passenger bus, and our tour guide, Francisco, who's amazing. He's Mayan, like he's old school Mexico. But we were in one of those little villages, like off the coast, and he pulls up and just starts talking to this guy. And the guy's like, yeah, bring him in. So they had this little, like the one little room living area. Then they had like the kind of kitchen in the back, but it's all in, they had their pigs and chickens and things running around. They decided that his wife immediately started cooking tortillas and stuff for us, and just invite like 30, 40 people, white people from America, just here, come hang out and check out our house. And this is how we live. And, in our minds, we're like, wow, how are they surviving? But it's like, they're so at that, just, this is all I need level, that they don't have to spend hours and hours on emails and phone calls and meetings and things like that. They're just like, all right, get up, do my chore. All right, my chore's done. Let's have some breakfast. Let's hang out with the family. What's the next thing? And they're just there, present in the moment. And I think it's you can speak to this probably. It seems like a much simpler way of life where everything they really need is taken care of, because they don't have that materialistic mindset like we have in the West, where like, I got to have the new thing and the new iPhone and the new clothes and the new car and the new.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's that's exactly where I was going with it too, was it's so simple. And they're not looking for what's next, what's more, I went down to Costa Rica thinking I was going to write my next book and do this and that. And that. I had this laundry list of stuff. By the time I spent a little bit of time down there, I was like, nuts to all that, man. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm just going to like chill and be present and like learn from these people. And one of the biggest takeaways that I learned was the day that I was born into this country, no matter how much I wish my dad was this way, or my mom was this way, or my upbringing was this way, or I had this, or I had that. The day I was born into this country, I was doing just fine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need anything else. I mean, these guys have what you need to survive.
Yep.
They've got community, they've got food, water, and shelter, and they've got a purpose. Whether it's just support my family or make a living or whatever, they have a purpose. That's it. That's all you need.
I several years ago, maybe 9 years ago at this point, I went to Rwanda on a mission trip, and very similar. Now, we didn't necessarily, the place we stayed at was, relatively speaking, really nice. But when we went into the villages and I got to see like the day-to-day life, these people ate what they grew outside of their house. Mm-hmm. It was a big deal to have a cow. So you have milk or goats or chickens or whatever. And so life was just so simple, man. And then when I got back, and then you throw in there, just they happen to have a genocide, in 98. And I realized, had I been born the year I was born, the day I was born in Rwanda, I'd have been part of the genocide. I'd have been right in the middle of all that, 20-some years old. And so, the reality was, though, just, I won the lottery just by being born in America. I had nothing to do with any of that. But just by being born in America, we call this we call commonly we call a lot of those types of countries third world countries, and come to find out a third of the world lives like us. Yeah. Most of the world lives on $1 a day in terms of money wise and income wise. And so, when I got back, it was just the realization that, man, we have so much, but we don't even realize what we have that most of the world doesn't have. We take so much for granted. And it's an eye-opening when you travel and see places and see how other places live.
Yeah, I mean, we spend so much time talking with ladies and men and dating in the U.S. and everything like that, and all these ladies are looking for the 1% man and a high-value man. Well, when you actually do the math worldwide, if you make over $35,000, or I think maybe it's closer to 36 now, but you make over $36,000 a year, you are technically 1% worldwide of earners. So you're in the 1%. Congratulations. You were born in America, and now you're a 1%er.
Right.
What are you going to do with it? Like, are you going to follow into the trap of commercialism and the need for more? Or are you going to acknowledge how blessed you are and then take it for what it's worth? Like, what can you create from this? And then how can you make yourself happy? Because, I mean, you guys can speak on this, but in my experience, going to those countries where they are closer to subsistence level, where it really is just about farming and being with the family and, the day to day, they are much happier than we are. Just on I mean, I think we're the 28th, 29th happiest nation or, continent in the world, where you get to someplace like Uganda where they're like number 1, number 2. And they're dancing in the street because they're happy they woke up. They're happy they have food for that day. They're happy they have water. They're just happy for the basics.
Right. And what ends up happening here, what I've discovered is that I was falling into the same trap. The trap is I have to, I need to, I should be, it's those kinds of things. And it was shocking to me how frequently I caught myself, my wife, my kids saying that same stuff after we got back. And it really, my wife loved it. I was like, you don't have to do anything. She's like, shut
Yeah, I'm sure that was a fun conversation.
Oh yeah, she loved it. Yeah. So but that's the thing, right, is there's so much out there saying you need this. Is your business struggling? You need to do this. There's so much messaging out there that says 10x it, do more, be more, get more, achieve more. It's not only common, it's celebrated. You run yourself into the ground and everyone's like, yes, good for you. And so this is where it gets a little dicey, because where's the line?
No.
What makes America great is that we have people that push themselves to the absolute brink. We have people who are willing to study for 12 years in school so that we can have the best healthcare on the face of the earth. Like, there's great advantages that we have because of that culture. So it is not a bad thing. It's a double-edged sword.
Yep.
And so what I came away from this trip was, it's not about saying that the way we're doing things are wrong, but it's about changing our relationship with what we are doing. I believe that there is a way that we can live in a more simplistic way, and yet at the same time go out and create something for ourselves. And that's the experiment that I'm running right now. I'm like, okay, how do I take everything down? I took everything off the table and I said, nothing is off limits. I took everything off the table and I'm slowly adding things back on. And I'm working half as much as I was before. And I'm still producing. I'm still making money. I'm still providing for my family, but I'm a heck of a lot happier. And, the title of this is Simplicity Bliss, maybe not 100%, but what I can tell you is the more that I have simplified my life, the more happy I am, the less stressed out I am, the less worried.
It's a balance thing. It's, and I think that's why we love camping and getting back to nature. Because not only are you connecting with nature, which kind of crudge your brain and mind and from all the energy and all the stuff you deal with every day, but you're also getting back to a basic subsistence level where it's like, it's about the food and the fire and the tent.
Mm-hmm.
You're not worried about everything else.
When I got back from that trip, first of all, when I got back, the very first thing, because it took like 2 days to travel back, and I was wearing the same dusty clothes that I had, whatever. And so the first thing I did when I got back was get in my shower.
Yeah.
And you know, the strangest thing happened when I got in my shower. First thing I did was break down crying. It just, the weight of it all just hit me at that moment. Not only the trip, the genocide, just everything I saw, just the breaking of it all, but also the fact that all I could think about was getting back into my shower with my 15 settings on my shower head, with my unlimited, basically hot water, you know, that I don't have to wait. I don't have to boil nothing. I literally just turn a knob, give it a few seconds, and I just got hot water just raining down on me. And I just broke, man. And I just realized, like, man, how much we have. And one of the things since then, I've kind of held to it. I'll never complain in a restaurant. You know, we can pretty much have to eat 24/7 anything we want, any type of food you want. You can find something open or order it or whatever. And we just, you know, we have so much, but I feel like the more we have, the more that breeds more.
Yep.
And the more that breeds a lack of satisfaction and a diminishing of enough. And I think, to your point, man, it causes stress, and it causes us to worship achievement and you know, and seek the idol of more. And I think more can be like an idol in our culture. Like, how much do I have? And however much do I have, I look to my left or to my right, and maybe they got more. So I got to have more than what they have. And then it just breeds just a cycle of just do. It becomes doo-doo.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes an addiction of more. And you look around and you see it even in our country, where homeless are the most generous people. You know, whatever they have, they share. But then, you know, the old saying, the things you own you.
Mm-hmm.
Once they own you, now you're working for them. And they want buddies. They want other, you know, it's like, oh, you got one house? Now you need two. You got two houses? Now you need a hotel. You got a hotel? Now you need a yacht. And it just spirals so that at some point your life isn't even yours anymore. Your life belongs to the things that you're acquiring.
Listen, this is where I am right now. I live in a big fancy house, you know, and my wife and I are thinking, what's next? Do we move?
I'll tell you what's next right now is for us to take a break.
Yeah, we're going to
have to rewind, take a little break, refresh.
Enough.
This has been enough. We'll be right back. Mad Men of Masculinity on KLDC. Oh, you talk with your hands like I do, but don't hit the table.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I didn't even think about it at the time, but I know there's been times where I've been like doing this, and I can hear it right in the microphone. I'm like, oh.
Dude, I'm famous. I mean,
I gave him a
don't
squishy
even
ball.
let me have stuff.
I gave you the squishy ball, but he says it feels like a.
He gave me
testy.
a blue squeeze ball that looks like a testicle.
It looks like an egg, but
no, it don't look like an egg. It looks like a testicle.
Hey,
like
if your testicles are that big,
hey man,
you got elephantitis.
Don't judge me, man.
Elephantitis.
Takes a lot of gas to run this engine, man.
They're big and blue.
They're big and blue,
man. That's why I got 4 kids, man.
Yeah. That's why he's getting married. They're big and blue.
I'm telling you, man. But yeah, I mean, I'm famous for that whole thing, man. Famous for that.
It's all good. It gives a character. All right, you ready to bring us back?
Yeah. Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC.
12:20 a.m.
in the Mile High City.
We're talking about simplicity, y'all.
Simplicity.
We got Dan Gomer here. We're talking about how things tend to own you.
Now, Dan, you are in. I'm really chomping on this thing, man. First of all, you're in real estate.
He's chewing on it.
And you facilitate people buying and selling a property. And you know, at least for sure in this general area, I can also imagine that we're not talking about little small itty bitty huts. And so you went through this whole experience where simplicity and I'm going to use the word minimalism was kind of brought front and center in your life. But then for a profession, you have to work with people who it only has a 3-car garage. You know, I need a 3-car with a tandem.
Is that Italian marble? That doesn't look like Italian marble.
Hot tub in the back, and what am I going to do with only 4 bedrooms? My husband and I, we don't have like enough space. And
are you guys working really?
I'm just like, dude, we got. I live in Parker, man. Besides Starbucks, I believe there's. Well, not I believe. I know for a fact there's more storage like units and facilities than there are Starbucks where I live.
Yep.
I mean, we got houses for our stuff. Yep. We literally rent apartments for just stuff that we don't have room for in our homes.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, how is that balancing that whole thing? Now, I mean, I don't want you to poo-poo on any clients or potential clients, but I'm just talking about just in the nature of it all and working with clients and with that whole balance in your life, in your psyche.
That's got to be a little bit of cognitive dissonance.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Like, look, people, come on, man.
I mean, that's a fantastic question, and nobody's directly asked me that question, and it's something that I've thought a lot about, you know, and I don't know that I have a spectacular answer for it yet. It's still kind of a work in progress, but I guess one of the things that I've taken away from this whole thing is that I'm not right. You know, it's not like I went out to Costa Rica and now I have all the answers. You know, that's just not the case. So I am coming back to the United States saying, listen, I'm coming back to the United States saying, how can I take what I learned in Costa Rica about the simplicity of life and how, oh man, just how much that impacted my life. Oh, I've never felt so good. How can I take that experience and bring it back to the United States and plug it into our current culture? So rather than saying you shouldn't buy a house, it's about, you know, why are you buying the house, right? What really matters? You know,
you got to buy everybody the you know, What's Your Why by Simon Sinek. Here, read this. Now tell me, why are you buying this house?
Right. But I'm also here to support people, you know, and so it's my job to support people. And so I'm not talking anybody into buying a house. I'm not talking to anybody about upsizing, downsizing. That's not my job. That's not my responsibility. You know, I want to learn how to first live in this kind of space, the simplicity, minimalism, if you want to call it. I feel like I am minimalizing my life, simplifying it, learning how to do that, and still be able to produce in a culture that expects production, to be able to provide a lifestyle for my family that they're accustomed to. Can I do both? That's what I'm trying to figure out. And so it fits into real estate. It still fits into real estate because, once again, I'm not trying to change anything. I'm not trying to come in here and say, oh, we're doing it all wrong. You know, that's not the point.
Yeah,
So,
you don't want to Jerry Maguire it and write the memo. You wrote the memo. Yeah, and you're out.
Yeah. Be that guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like it's not just us. It's not just you. It's going around, because I've seen, you know, like even the tiny home movement and the minimalist movement. A lot of people are starting to realize we're buried in junk. And I mean, you want to get classic, and you go back to like the old George Carlin where he talks about, I need my stuff, and I got a house full of my stuff, and now I got storage places full of more stuff. I just want my stuff. And I mean, if you don't know George Carlin, I mean, you've been living a rock, but go watch that. But it's hilarious because it's true. You know, even the whole traveling bit, like when you're a minimalist, a lot of these guys, they have a few sets of clothes. They all fit in like one suitcase. They can go anywhere at any time. They have their laptop. They can work from wherever. They're free. How many of us who have multiple homes or have a bunch of, you know, credit and bills and things, you know, where we're basically working for the things that we own? You know, okay, I go to work to do this job, to make this money, to pay for this house, to hold my stuff, and then I got to pay for this car to get back and forth from the house to the job. And
when does it end?
When does it end? It's just you're on the hamster wheel.
And this is what I believe is you know, and why I love being on this podcast with you guys. There's so many guys that fall into that because when is it enough? Like ultimately, that's what broke me. Is I was like, okay, I had this great year. Now next year, what's it going to look like? Same thing. Yep. Maybe more. Then the next year, what's it going to look like? Same thing, maybe more. And until I can pile up enough cash into a giant pile, you know,
Walter White
underneath my mattress, you know, until I can finally retire. And I'm 60 and my hips hurt, and, you know, I can't play basketball anymore and all these kinds of things. And it's like, well, that sounds terrible.
Yeah. What
I discovered in Costa Rica is we don't have to do that. We can actually find joy and happiness and fulfillment right now, today.
And I feel like
need anything physical to make that happen.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like men get caught in this trap by trying to over provide for family, over provide for spouses. Like my kids got to have all of the best stuff. They got to be able, you know, my son just can't play football. I got to have him going to Peyton Manning football camp, and this football camp we got to have a traveling team. You know, he's got to have a personal coach at 12. You know, he's got to have all the toys. Our family's got to have the boat, the paddle boards. We got to be going on the trips. Our social media timeline has to look great. And so as a man, we experience that in the pressure to provide, but not providing enough, but providing more so that, you know, so that somehow our family is validated. And I think as men, we get caught in that trap, man, because, you know, we can feel like it can reflect on us when our family doesn't keep up with the more. And so, you know, that circles back to your trip where it's like, you know, I don't know if this happened to you, but you could have probably felt between a rock and a hard place of like, man, here I am, the dad. I got my wife and kids, and the ceiling's falling in because I got iguanas falling in place. I got a toad in the toilet.
I thought it was great.
I mean, you know, but that could easily turn all back on you, where the wife and kids look at you like, is this all you can? This is the best you can do for us? So I think a lot of guys get caught in this thing, man, and we miss out on the opportunity to have space, to have margin, to be enough, man. I am enough at what I can provide. And I don't need to keep up with everybody else. The Joneses don't really have more. They probably have more credit card debt because they got more stuff. But, you know, but I don't need to keep up with that. I'm enough right now as a person, as a man, as a husband, as a father. I don't need to keep up with somebody else.
And that's a great point. Because, I mean, especially we've done so much about the feminist movement and how it's like everything's men's fault and men aren't good enough. And we're only loved, especially in the West, by what we produce, by what we provide. And then if we have a family who expects the more, then it's incumbent on us as the man to provide the more. Yep. And so, I mean, that's got to be a fun conversation. You're like, hey, I think the more is making us unhappy. Let's do the less. And they're like, excuse me?
Listen, it was shocking to me how, and then I'd like to share a story if you guys don't mind, but it was one of the things that I did not expect was when I started talking to people about my experience, how many people... It's almost taboo to say, I want less.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Everyone's like, what?
Yeah.
What? You know, are you crazy? Like, you don't want your kid to be the best basketball player that ever lived? I'm like, well, no. And they're like, oh, you're crazy, right? But then when I've come back and I've started talking a little bit more real about like simplifying, people are starving. They are starving for simplicity. It's been very shocking to me to see that. But I'll share a quick story. When I was down there in Costa Rica, I was about 2.5 weeks in. I was still feeling the pressure. We'd finished our traveling. We were settling into Tarcoles. And I was like, okay, now I got to start writing my book, but I don't feel like it. I still was not unwound. I was still just like, I needed another 1.5 weeks of just totally doing nothing before my like adrenaline stopped. Yeah. It was crazy how long it took. But anyway, I'm talking to this coach who, his name is Lee Cohen, a really good guy. He talked to me. I called him and I was just like, listen, man, I need some help. I don't know what direction I'm going with my business. I don't know how to go back to America. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I need some advice. He's like, you know what? Sounds like you need to simplify. I'm like, that sounds great. Let's do that. Excuse me. And I said, so here's all the things that I have to do. I coach my son's basketball team. I run a real estate team. I'm selling houses. I'm writing a book. I am on and on and on and on and on. You know, I can't even think of all the things that I had on my list, but it was like a never ending list. And at some point he's like, okay, stop, you know, you're doing too much. He said, let's start eliminating some of these things. And we got to basketball. And he's like, so I used to be a middle school science teacher and I coached high school basketball. I coached at Highlands Arts High School. We were one of the best teams in the state while I was there. You know, and so I consider myself to be a pretty good basketball coach. So I'm like, you know, I got to coach my son's team. And he's like, well, do you? And I said, well, yeah, I mean, I got that. That's what I do. I got to do it. And he said, you know, is it possible that if you actually just sat on the sideline and didn't coach your son's team, but rather than hiring the private coach that you were talking about, Kirk, instead of doing all of that stuff, what if you just became Caleb's coach? Because at the end of the day, he doesn't care if you are standing on the basketball court with him. What he cares about is that you are there. Yep. And that you see him and you are with him and you are present when you're with him. That's all he cares about. So get over yourself. Stop coaching his team. And I was like, thank you.
Well, I mean,
thank you for the permission to be able to let that go. And as soon as I dropped that one, then I was like, oh, I can drop this and this and this and this and this and this.
How light did you feel
Oh
after
my
that?
God. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
man.
Well, it's like even when you think about like if we were logical, if we were rational thinkers, if we didn't get caught into the hamster wheel of more, when we're thinking about it's got to be the best, it's got to be the 1%, it's got to be all these things. If you actually were like maybe had an honest conversation with your son, he'd be like, "Dad, I don't want you coaching my team. I just want you over there." Like the kids want you around.
Yeah.
They just don't want you in the business.
Yeah.
Like because I mean it's got to be even more stressful when you're the coach of his team.
Mhm.
It's like, well, I got to treat you just like I treat the other kids, no favoritism, and he's all stressed out. Like I don't want to make Dad mad, but
Yeah.
it's got to be a tough thing. But just to be there is the simplest thing.
All right. And not only, what's funny about it, I think he's actually performing better because now I'm his coach.
Right.
So that's actually really helping. But the other thing is he tells me all the time, like almost daily, Dad, I love going outside and shooting hoops with you. It is my favorite time of the day. He tells me that almost every single day. And I'm just like, man, talk about a compliment. Holy cow. And it came from doing theoretically less.
Yeah. Show me the 40 or 50-year-old man that doesn't wish his father was just there more.
Yeah.
Just present more. And that's something that we all want, especially again, as men looking back, hindsight, I mean, I just want presence. The present is a gift for a reason, right? Because presence is enough. And it does come down to that. And talk about enough. I think we've had enough of that segment. Let's take our last break.
Well, okay, fine.
Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC 1220 AM, Denver, Colorado.
12:20 a.m.
Boom.
Saturdays at 8, Wednesdays at 6.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that because I mean, how many of us had that experience of? I know with my dad, it was like walking on eggshells because I didn't want to get his attention because then it was either do this or do that or be interrogated or whatever because it couldn't just be half the time. The only time we could just be was like on the golf course or something like that. But even then, it was a competition.
Yeah.
And we need to give ourselves permission to just do less in spite of the stigma of doing less.
Yeah,
because I think there is a stigma of doing less.
Who are we competing with?
Well, there's totally a stigma around it. You're not supposed to do like this is America.
Right.
America is about bigger and more and better and whatever,
And ultimately, to your point, there's no end to it. There's no like it just goes off into infinity. And the more you do, the more you need to do to keep doing more than you were doing.
That's why I quit corporate sales because the finish line kept moving every month. Oh, great, you did that, okay? And I'm like, I'm simple. Give me my list. Let me do my chore. Let me do my list, and then each one's a little victory, and then moving on.
All right. Speaking of moving on, let's move on to the next segment here.
Yes, we are back.
Yeah,
it is the Mad Men of Masculinity show.
that's right. KLDC 1220 AM, Denver, Colorado. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, anywhere you get a podcast. You can look us up, any of that kind of stuff. And here on the radio, 1220, Saturdays 8 a.m., Wednesdays 6 p.m. You can holler, check us out, and all that kind of good stuff. Reach out to us. Let us know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are we crazy? Are we on to something? I mean, do you need to give yourself permission? How about that? Just if you're watching this or reading a comment, do you need to give yourself permission to do less? Because maybe there is a stigma around that. For me, so many things come back to golf. And first of all, just being out there in the simplicity.
It's our therapy, baby.
Being out there in the simplicity of a golf course, man. It's just a tee box. There's however many hundreds of yards, and then in the end, there's a cup. And my goal is eventually to hit it however many times it takes me to get it into that cup. And today I was talking to a guy, the guy that was riding in my cart, and I was like, man, maybe he was talking about, I need to remember to do this, I need to remember to do that, not stand up. And I said, yeah, you just got to remember that. Tell yourself that without thinking.
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you mean without thinking? I said, well, maybe it comes down. I mean, I'm just pontificating. And I was like, maybe it's just mindfulness. He's like, what do you mean mindfulness? I said, maybe it's the stillness of the moment, the stillness of just blank and then swing and hit the ball.
Just hit the ball.
Because the more you think
Worse
and
you
hit
get.
off, the more you're going to mess up. Just like the harder you swing, the more you're going to mess up. And so maybe life is about the simplicity of being still in the mind, in the mindfulness of the moment and just executing enough. All I need to do right now is just enough.
Yeah, there's a great cartoon or meme or whatever I saw that I love, and it's a guy walking his dog, and they show the little bubble over his head. And he's got like 20 little things and all this stuff going on in there. Then they show the dog's little bubble, and it just shows the scene that they're looking at.
Mhm.
He's present in the moment. And how often are we present in the moment?
Well, and when you talk about, I call this the overcomplication of everything, you know, in America, right? Like
Everything.
And so, perfect example. We got a new garage door put in. My buddy does garage doors, and it has Wi-Fi capability. Because why wouldn't you want Wi-Fi capability for your garage?
I got it.
And you got to like,
Because then you might have to get out and push a button.
But you got to download the app,
Yeah.
and then we got new Wi-Fi, and then my wife's app wasn't working. I refused to download the app. But you see what I mean? It's like, just push the button. You know, we just
That's what the remote's
overcomplicate
for.
everything.
Hey, let's back up, man. Don't judge the Wi-Fi.
Oh, I see. Somebody
Don't judge.
drank the
There's some
Kool-Aid.
things that are off limits on this show. Don't judge the Wi-Fi garage door over there, man. It is
That's
fantastic, man.
I'm sorry,
I love
folks.
it.
Kurt
It is,
drank
man.
the Kool-Aid.
It is fantastic, man. I can open my garage door from wherever I am. I can open it for somebody else. I can blah, blah, blah. I gave my son's here this week, gave him access to it. He can open and close it. So off limits this show. Don't judge the Wi-Fi garage.
And now you're gonna have to change your passcode
Now
because now
anymore.
everybody knows
Now
that
anymore.
they can get in your garage with your Wi-Fi password. You gotta change your password
Now
now.
anymore. I still got the button on my little thing. But
Yeah,
I also can open it from right here if I want to.
I see.
As long as I got internet connection.
But it is true. We
We
overcomplicate
do.
everything,
We do.
and the whole competition mindset. And I get it. It's the U.S. We got to be the biggest. We got to be the best. We got to be number one. But who are we competing with? Because honestly, you know, and we've all had these conversations. We've all heard the wise man say, "Nobody, you can't, competing with somebody is just basically fighting in the dark, or you know what, in the wind." So, because nobody can compete with who you are, because you are different than everybody else, and they are different than you. And when you try to compete with somebody, you're negating who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, the things that you're good at, trying to emulate somebody else. Now, granted, if you're trying to be number one, you're trying to be the best, you always want to have the coach. We all need support, things like that. But those coaches and those people should be helping you become the best version of yourself versus this whole competition mindset of, oh, somebody, because I mean, you see all the memes and the cartoons where one guy's walking and he sees a guy on a bike. Oh, I wish I had a bike. One guy's on a bike, sees a guy in a car. Oh, I wish I had a car. Guys in cars see somebody in a plane. Oh, I wish I had a plane. It's never ending. So what is it for you that you really need? I know, I mean, Dan and I, we did some of the same personal development work, and there was one during the men's leadership seminar where we do this solo thing where we're out by ourselves out in the woods for several days. And I had all of these things, all these goals and all this stuff that I just had to do. I'm not going to be successful. I'm not going to be a man. I'm not going to be whatever if I don't do these things. Then I spent a few days out in the woods by myself, literally by myself with my little 10 by 10 area, my tent and my granola. And after those days, I was like, I found such a level of peace out in nature that I was actually mad, because then I'm like, well, now what? I don't care about doing those things now. Well, now what? Now I had to find a new reason, a new why to do those things, or to find new things to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it comes down to purpose, right? It's my wife says that her dad passed a few years ago, and she told me a little while ago that she thinks that the one thing that he was really missing after he retired was a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that that's so important. I also believe that part of where things start to go off the rails a little bit, especially when we talk about competition, is that it becomes blind.
Yeah.
It's blind competition. It's blind drive. When we bring intention to it and we say, well, what do I actually want? And why do I actually want that? Then there's nothing wrong with going after being number one. Like, I have this stupid goal. This is the first. You heard it here first, folks.
It's his new goal. Watch out.
Breaking news.
I said that, I believe, I don't know when I'll do it, but if I spent a year playing bags, I could be on the professional cornhole tour, on ESPN, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not doing it because I want to be the best cornhole player that ever lived. I'm doing it because it sounds like a lot of fun and something to just go do. And so those are two, and I'm going to do it very competitively, right? So those are two different ways of looking at something. Sports are a fantastic teacher. You got the coaches, you got your teammates, you got competition, you got all of these things. What an amazing opportunity to learn about ourselves and learn about life and learn about leadership and all of these great things. Where we get lost is when we forget why we're doing what we're doing.
Right. So it's all about the winning. It all becomes beat the other guy. And then, like everything else, whatever's a blessing is a curse. So this is a blessing, sports and doing things that bring you together and teach you skills and teach you a mindset. But then when all you focus on is just the winning piece, just the being the number one, then you miss the whole point of doing what you're doing. And then it becomes a curse.
I love you dropping in the word purpose, man, because I wonder if when we get stuck on the treadmill of more, if we squeeze out the opportunity to have purpose or the space to have purpose. I mean, ultimately, yeah, the why we're here should be the most important, because when we're gone, I mean, our stuff ain't coming with us, right? I mean, all of our 10Xing ain't coming with us. It's going to be somebody else's. Yeah. And by the way, so is your wife and your kids. It's going to be somebody else's, right? I mean, everything you have, including your debt and assets and relationships, are going to be somebody else's, except your legacy. But when we get stuck on the more and the do and all this other kind of stuff, then it's like, man, maybe we miss out on the opportunity to really focus in on some purpose. What is my why today? And maybe that should be the most important thing that's in my day today, not necessarily just making and doing more.
Yeah. And as men today, I'm sorry, I'll throw it right to you, but there was something you said about your father-in-law. You know, he retired and didn't feel like he had purpose. So many of us get stuck in the making money is my purpose, providing for my family is my purpose, that we forget to find our actual own purpose, where the job becomes a means to that end. And there's a horrifying statistic, but most men last about 18 months after they retire, because to that point, they feel like they've lost purpose. They feel like they don't have a reason to be here anymore. And playing golf is great for a few months, but then, then they just feel like they're useless and they're listless, because they didn't find their personal purpose. Their purpose was the family, the job, the whatever, the climbing the corporate ladder. But that wasn't really their purpose. That was just the means to the end. So for us as guys, finding a purpose that we can make our goal, and maybe that will help you, and you can probably speak to this too, Dan, like finding whatever that purpose is and that thing is that can help you simplify your life, because that becomes the one thing.
Right. And I run a coaching program as well, where and I really just do it for my real estate team at this point, but it's all about simplicity. It's about simplifying everything to get down to purpose is part of it, but it's more of legacy. I love, Kirk, that you said legacy, and that was the word that kind of stuck out to me, because at the end of the day, we all leave a legacy, right? It is what it is. We all
right or wrong,
good or bad, good or bad. And so a lot of times it can be as simple as, what do I want to leave behind? And that can be the purpose. So maybe you just want to be a good grandfather. Maybe you just want to be somebody who, says thank you to the barista every time you go in. Maybe your legacy is just the energy that you bring to the world. Maybe your legacy is that you retired and lit the world on fire at that point. We get to decide what our legacy is. And, and I think a lot of times, if it seems to me that if we can reframe from what's my purpose, I got to go find this purpose, and it's this one thing and it never changes, blah, blah, blah. That's a bunch of garbage. No, that's not true. But if we think about, what do I want to leave behind? How do I want to impact the world? How do I want to impact my kids or my family or my friends? And then live our life from that state of being, life gets a lot easier that way. It just gets a lot easier. You look at Doggo, his purpose, man, every morning, this guy he had visited Tarcoles and then 2 other cities in Costa Rica. That is it, his entire life. He was 60 something. Wow. And every morning, hey, Doggo, how you doing? Pura vida, pura vida. Just the happiest guy. He had a purpose.
Yeah. And it's funny, they consider Costa Rica one of the happiest countries. They don't even have a military. I mean, like a country, the country does not have a military. I mean, things are really simple down there. And so, maybe these are some things that we need to hold on to. So 30 seconds, let's bring this plane in for a landing. What's our individual takeaways here?
We'll go with you, sir. Guess first.
Yeah, guess first.
Our personal takeaways. In 30 seconds. Life is better when we simplify. It doesn't need to be so complicated. Let's make it simple.
Right. Yeah. For me, it is to that point, purpose, legacy, finding what is your why for doing what you're doing. Because when we don't have that, then we tend to get caught up with all the other stuff, the marketing and the strive for more. And that more is just eating you up. It's time to simplify to who are you? What do you want? What are your strengths? Go in that direction. Find your purpose and your legacy. and then let all the other stuff kind of fall away. And I bet you'd be a lot happier.
Commonly speaking, women don't feel like they're enough physically and sexually. A lot of women don't feel enough in their physicalities, in terms of their being and who they are. And men, I think, commonly don't feel enough in our production, in our who we are, what we've created, what we've manifested, what we whatever brought into this world. And ultimately, I think in this conversation, speaking of men, we are enough. We got to get to the point and get settled at being enough and letting enough be enough and not trying to prove anything to anybody else. The most important thing that we can have, do, or provide is presence and peace and stability and security for those around us. Hey, Dan, how can people get a hold of you, man?
You can go to danshometeam.com, dangomer.com. You can also email me, danielgomer1@gmail.com. I'm happy to talk to anybody about any of this stuff, man. If it were up to me, this is what I would do, man. This is my legacy. Get out there and make the world a better place. So.
It's a new phase in life for you, Dan. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, we appreciate you, man. We appreciate the insight. We appreciate the perspective. We appreciate what you do. And we also know the tribe you're a part of, man, and your home team around here, man. We hope that this is not the last time you're around here, man. We hope to have your face on the screen and your voice in the speakers.
That would be great.
Here sooner rather than later, man. So thanks. And again, folks, let us know your comments. Reach out, connect, all that kind of stuff. I mean, what do you think about Dan? Is he onto something, or is he smoking something?
Is he onto
something, or is he smoking something? What do you think? But either way, until next time, we are the Madmen of Masculinity, and we will catch up with you next time.
And remember, enough is enough.
And with that,
Madmen out.